President Trump crisscrossing the Middle East on this tour, and I want to revisit yesterday what I believe, and I really ruminated on this. I wrote this at the Harump Society yesterday. It is, it's something that many people didn't talk a lot about in mainstream media, legacy media. They're not going to focus on this. But what we heard, I did touch on it yesterday. It was monumental, really. We saw a foreign policy break with traditional presidents of past and their foreign policy. Unmatched, unprecedented. We've never seen this, at least since I've been paying attention to politics now for almost 50 years. Well, let's call it 30, to be honest. I'd say until I was after 20 years of age, I really wasn't fully engaged in what was going on, to be honest with you. Since my mid-20s, I'll put it to you that way, and I'm almost 50. This speech from Donald Trump is a massive policy break from all previous presidents that I've been paying attention to in these 20-some-odd years. Again, let's refresh from Saudi Arabia. Take a listen.
In recent years, far too many American presidents have been afflicted with the notion that it's our job to look into the souls of foreign leaders and use U.S. policy to dispense justice for their sins. They loved using our very powerful military, and now it's really the most powerful it's ever been. We just are getting a budget approved, $1 trillion, highest budget we've ever had in history for military, $1 trillion. And we're getting the greatest missiles, the greatest weapons. And, you know, I hate to do it, but you have to do it because we believe in peace through strength. You have to have the strength, otherwise bad things could happen. But hopefully we'll never have to use any of those weapons. Seems to be an awfully big waste of money if you're never going to use them, but hopefully we'll never have to use them because the destructive power of some of those weapons are like nobody's seen before. I believe it is God's job to sit in judgment, my job to defend America, and to promote the fundamental interest of stability, prosperity, and peace. That's what I really want to do.
I don't know if everybody understands how important that is. I don't know if everybody understands. I know this audience does, but I'm just saying I don't know. Most of legacy media won't tell the millions of Americans who weren't paying attention to that speech and didn't hear it. Maybe some of you happening by the show didn't hear that speech. What I just played for you is a significant historical moment. That is a policy that is likely to resonate for centuries, well after we're gone. Because America's post-World War II trajectory has been one of just constant combat, destruction. From the Korean War and 36,000 American deaths then, to the 58,000 deaths in Vietnam, and then Iraq and Afghanistan, talking some 7,000 brave Americans lost respectively between those two theaters. These are conflicts that have spanned, 70 years? Cost over $4 trillion and has done nothing but leave chaos in its wake. From the fall of Saigon to the Taliban resurgence and taking over Abigate. And what's it accomplished for us? What's really happened here? What have we gotten out of that? We've got really rich defense contractors. We got a lot of fat and happy folks in Washington, D.C. tied to the Pentagon, all the while draining our national resources. It's nice for once to have a president who is a commerce hawk. I think that's what I'll call him, a commerce hawk, a fiscal hawk. He's out there trying to forge a wiser path instead of war and destruction, and a war hawk and a military machine guy. Yeah, he wants a strong defense, but he wants revenues. He wants revenues flowing into the country, not resources and lives flowing out of the country for a change. He promotes peace through strength and the uniqueness of American power, of profit, strength, not just militarily, monetarily. And this is a vision that Trump has held since he was a kid. Back then, he decried Vietnam's trillion-dollar quagmire as a mistake. I mean, if you go back and you listen to Trump since he was a young man, he did interviews about this stuff. He's been vindicated. If you go back and watch file footage of him for decades, he's talked like this. Trump declared America no longer intends to dictate to others how they should live, but will use its military power for defense and protection. This is a huge departure, a sharp, stunning departure from the Bush-Cheney doctrine. Eras that now we're talking about safeguarding our interests and our national sovereignty first, instead of pretending to protect other countries or spread democracy or whatever thing the Bush-Cheney era was all about. Trump said, and I quote also, America will no longer be the world's policeman spilling our wealth for ungrateful nations. And Trump drove this point home when he said, in the end, the so-called nation builders wrecked far more than they built. Interventionists intervening in complex societies that they didn't understand themselves, he said. It's true. We seek peace through mutual prosperity, not endless conflict. And so when the New York Times said at the beginning of this week, you know, Trump's going to the Middle East and all he's doing is business deals. Yeah, that's exactly right. That's Donald Trump's diplomacy. That's a new way of doing foreign policy. This is a break of like 70 years of this country doing foreign policy one way. Breaking, destroying, spending, dying. Trump says, how about peace through prosperity? This is Trump's genius. This is a real estate savant, a business savant who turned into a global deal maker, effectively. And he's uniting nations through a mutual interest of shared profit. Everybody wants to get money. Everybody wants to get wealthier. Trump says, I can help you do that. I know how to do that. A $600 billion Saudi trade deal. All part of a $1 trillion Middle East initiative overall. His belief is nations prosper together, standing united against threats in a true win-win situation. And that comes, he believes, financially. I agree. This is a huge, important, vital shift for this country. We have a $36 trillion debt. And it demands that we build our future and our nation on growth. We've got to grow monetarily. We've got to have more revenues coming in. We got to stop sending our blood and treasure out. Warfare is not growth. It's growth for the military-industrial complex. It's growth for all the fat and happy decorated chests in Washington, D.C., but not for you and me, not for the rest of the country, and certainly not for the millions of families, I guess, all over the country who have been touched by the death of a loved one serving in these massacres we participated in over the decades. Trump's deals create jobs for Main Street. Farmers, factory workers, families. Preserving America's strength without exhausting our blood and treasure for once. How refreshing. And he achieves this despite the fact the Democrat Party and the media, but I repeat myself, are relentlessly lying and cheating and smearing and trying to undermine the guy at every turn. He continues to achieve successes. It's strange to me why young people wouldn't gravitate to him en masse. I think young men are. I mean, the data suggests that that's true. But this is a president not sending our young people off to war at the drop of a hat. How about all the senior citizens who were throwback hippies of the day? The peace, love, and rock and roll set. Where are all of you people now? Why wouldn't you support a guy who was against the war in Vietnam? You know, John Kerry throwing his medals over the White House fence. Where are you hipsters and hippies now? All the songs written about the war. Why not support this president? Women. Why not support a president who's making this country safer, demonstrably safer? And furthermore, probably my biggest question and the biggest confusion that I have of all of it, why wouldn't every single Republican, without fail and without question, wrap their loving arms around this president and his policy and his prescriptions for future success for this country? It is winning. It is the most popular. We've never seen its historical right track numbers. Why wouldn't every single Republican on Capitol Hill lovingly embrace this president's agenda? It's a winner. It's a winner. Money makes the world go round, isn't that the saying? Well, Trump believes that's true. He's proving that theory. He's making some extraordinary deals with people that have traditionally been seen as our enemy, or at least hostile to our interests. But the thing we share in common, everybody wants to get rich. Everybody wants to make more money. This speech, this break with 70 years, I guess, effectively, more or less, of the traditional foreign policy coming out of the United States, I cannot express how historic this week really is. It's due much more attention than it's getting.
For full shows, live and on demand, it's Salem News Channel.